Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of power dynamics with a summary of The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. This book has been a game changer for many, revealing timeless strategies used by history's most powerful figures. Imagine having the tools to navigate any social situation, influence and persuade others, and protect yourself from manipulation. Whether you're looking to climb the corporate ladder, build stronger relationships, or simply understand the hidden dynamics at play in everyday life, this summary will equip you with powerful insights. Kautilya once said, "An archer may miss his target with an arrow, but a strategist can kill even an unborn child with his strategy." It doesn't matter who you are. To move forward in life, you need power. Becoming powerful means changing your mindset. You must learn to manage your emotions and practice patience. If you consistently practice these principles, the 48 laws of power will naturally become a part of your life. In this summary, you'll learn from history's greatest strategists and leaders. These laws are not just rules. They are timeless strategies that can help you navigate the complexities of life and relationships. Whether you're aiming to climb the corporate ladder, strengthen your personal connections, or gain a deeper understanding of power dynamics, this audiobook summary will provide you with invaluable insights. Stay with us till the end and discover how you can start your journey to the top with these powerful laws. Let's dive in and learn from the best. Never outshine the master. Nicolas Fouquet was the finance minister of France during the reign of Louis XIV. He loved wealth, luxury, and a life of opulence. Fouquet was not only intelligent but also a favorite of the king. He hoped that after the prime minister's death, King Louis would appoint him as the successor. However, Louis XIV had decided to abolish the position altogether. Realizing that his relationship with the king had soured, Fouquet decided to regain the king's trust by organizing a grand feast in his honor. Fouquet announced that the feast was to celebrate the completion of his palace, Vaux-le-Vicomte. In reality, he wanted to pay tribute to his most important guest, King Louis XIV. The richest and most powerful people in Europe attended the feast. The famous playwright and actor Molière had specially prepared a play for the occasion to be performed before the night ended. The party began with a 7-course meal that included exotic dishes from Asia and various new cuisines. Musicians played to welcome the king, while the guests mingled and enjoyed the lavish food and drinks. Fouquet escorted King Louis XIV through the palace gardens. The grandeur of Fouquet's palace and the splendid arrangements won over all the guests. Everyone agreed that it was the best feast they had ever attended. However, the next morning, the captain of the royal guard arrested Fouquet, charging him with embezzling the state treasury, leading to a trial. In truth, it was Louis XIV himself who had instructed Fouquet to misappropriate public funds. But Fouquet was declared guilty and imprisoned in a cell in the Pyrenees Mountains, where he spent the last 20 years of his life. Louis XIV, known as the Sun King, was extremely arrogant and ruthless. He always wanted to be the center of attention. He could not tolerate anyone surpassing him in wealth, fame, or luxury. This is why he harbored a deep-seated hatred for Fouquet and conspired to remove him. He appointed a cunning man named Colbert as his new finance minister. Colbert's sole focus was to funnel as much treasury money as possible into Louis XIV's pockets. The king used this money to build a magnificent palace even grander than Fouquet's, known as the Palace of Versailles. Louis XIV hired the same architects, designers, and landscape artists who had worked for Fouquet. At Versailles, the king hosted even more extravagant feasts than Fouquet. Fouquet believed that his beautiful palace and grand feast would win over King Louis XIV. He thought it would demonstrate his good taste and high status, proving that he deserved to be the next prime minister. However, this very thought offended the king. That night, Louis XIV saw that his own people and friends were giving more attention to Fouquet than to him. The realization of being overshadowed by Fouquet deeply wounded the king, leading him to eliminate Fouquet. Rich and powerful people like kings and queens always want to maintain their status in life. They never want anyone to surpass them in intelligence and charm. It is a big mistake to think that you can please your boss by showcasing your abilities. Even if they praise you on the surface, they will immediately replace you with someone less threatening. Even if you are more capable than your boss, never let it show. Always remember that your earnings and position are dependent on them. Flatter them if needed, but never reveal your true intentions. For instance, if you have more knowledge on a topic than your boss, do not let it show in front of them, or they will feel insecure. Make a minor mistake and ask for their help. Make them feel that all your great ideas are because of them. Let them take all the credit. Allow your master to stay in the spotlight. Let them bask in the praise and attention. This does not mean you're weak. You are simply concealing your strength, which will eventually lead you to power. If you let your master shine, instead of making them feel insecure and facing the consequences, you can keep the situation under control. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. When Michael III became the ruler of the Byzantine Empire, he was just a young boy. His mother was sent to a convent as punishment, and her lover was killed. This conspiracy was orchestrated by Michael's uncle, Bardas, a sharp and ambitious man. Bardas had dethroned Queen Theodora and replaced her with her son, Michael III. Surrounded by liars, murderers, and conspirators, Michael needed an advisor he could trust. He chose his close friend Basil, who was the head of the royal stables. Though Basil had little experience in politics and governance, he had repeatedly proven his loyalty and love for Michael. Michael and Basil had met a few years earlier. One day, while Michael was at the stables, a horse broke free and charged towards him. Basil, a young servant from a peasant family, saved Michael's life. Impressed by his bravery and strength, Michael promoted Basil from a horse trainer to the head of the stables. He sent Basil to the best schools in the city, where he learned the ways of the court. Basil owed everything he was to Michael. The young king believed that appointing Basil as his chief counselor was the right decision. Ignoring the advice of his courtiers, Michael chose his close friend over his uncle Bardas. Basil received the proper training and soon began advising Michael on all important matters. The problem was that Basil always demanded more money and prioritized his own interests. Soon, Michael tripled his salary, made him a lord, and arranged his marriage to his mistress, Eudokia. Meanwhile, Michael's uncle Bardas became the head of the army. Basil started poisoning Michael's mind against Bardas, convincing him that Bardas was plotting against him. He made Michael believe that Bardas had placed him on the throne only to control him, with the ultimate goal of usurping it for himself. Basil's manipulation led Michael to sentence his own uncle to death. During a city horse race, Basil approached Bardas and stabbed him to death. Afterward, Basil demanded to be made the head of the army, claiming he would keep rebels in check and manage the state's affairs. Michael agreed. In just a few years, Michael's extravagant lifestyle left him penniless. He asked Basil to return the money he had given him over the years, but Basil outright refused. This shocked Michael. He finally realized his mistake. The boy from the stables, whom he had helped, was now richer and more powerful than him. Basil had more money and more friends in the army and senate than Michael. One night, Michael awoke from a drunken stupor to find himself surrounded by soldiers. They stabbed him to death while Basil watched. Basil then declared himself the new king. He paraded Michael's severed head around the city on a spear. Michael had relied on the favors he had done for Basil, not realizing that he was nurturing a serpent. Michael gave Basil everything, but Basil believed he had earned it all himself. Michael should have been cautious the moment Basil refused to return the money. However, blinded by friendship, Michael paid with his life. The truth is, you don't know your friends as well as you think. They agree with you to avoid arguments and hide the truth to spare your feelings. They'll laugh at your jokes even if they don't find them funny. Your friends will tell you that you look good and you'll believe them, but the reality might be different. The ultimate test is hiring a friend. The more gifts and favors you give, the more resentment and envy they feel, and one day they might betray you. People don't like feeling indebted. They believe they deserve everything they get. Your friends will never acknowledge that their wealth and position are because of you. History is full of stories of betrayal. You shouldn't be surprised if, despite always helping your friends, no one stands by you when you need help. It's better to hire based on skills rather than friendship. Michael III should have chosen his uncle Bardas as chief counselor instead of Basil. Bardas could have guided him correctly, and perhaps he would have survived. Enemies are better assets than friends. This relationship is based more on mutual benefits than feelings. You may hate your enemy, but as long as both benefit, you won't hesitate to join hands. Having enemies also prevents you from becoming complacent, as competitors keep you alert and focused. You can't relax for even a minute, fearing they might outdo you. At least you'll know where your enemies stand, unlike some friends who might betray you behind your back. Conceal your intentions. Ninon de L'Enclos was a famous dancer in 17th century France. At that time, she was hired to help a young and beautiful countess become the lover of Marquis de Sévigné. Ninon, then 26 years old, was an expert in matters of love and seduction. The Marquis, on the other hand, was only 22, very handsome, but unsuccessful in love. Ninon had heard about the Marquis's failed attempts at love. Finally, one day she decided enough was enough, and she needed to take action. First, Ninon explained that love is a battlefield where the Marquis was a general trying to conquer a fortress, which in this case was the beautiful Countess's heart. Therefore, he had to plan every move carefully and execute everything perfectly. She advised the Marquis to start over. He had to approach the Countess as if he had no interest in her. He had to present himself as a friend. This would confuse the Countess, and she wouldn't understand his true intentions. Afterward, he needed to make the Countess feel jealous. Ninon sent the Marquis to attend a grand party in Paris with a beautiful girl. This girl had many beautiful friends who surrounded the Marquis. Wherever he went, the most beautiful women in Paris gathered around him. This not only made the Countess jealous, but also made her realize that many women were vying for the Marquis's attention. Ninon explained that women are more attracted to men who are desired by many women. It satisfies their ego to be the one desired by a man whom every woman wants. Once the Countess felt jealous and her heart inclined towards the Marquis, it was time to seduce her. Ninon told the Marquis to avoid parties where the Countess expected him. Instead, he should go to places the Countess frequented, but where he had never gone before. This would confuse the Countess, and she wouldn't be able to predict his next move. This would increase her excitement. This process took several weeks. Ninon kept an eye on the Marquis and the Countess through her spies. She learned that the Countess laughed heartily at the Marquis's jokes, listened attentively to his words, and at parties she searched for the Marquis, and when she couldn't find him, she inquired about him. Ninon confidently predicted that within a month or two, the Countess would fall in love with the Marquis. However, their entire plan fell apart. A few days later, the Marquis went to the Countess's house. He forgot everything Ninon had advised and instead followed his heart. He took the Countess's hand and confessed his love to her. This shocked the Countess. She made an excuse to free herself and left, avoiding him for the rest of the evening. After that, she stopped meeting the Marquis altogether. Great politicians, thinkers, and writers of that time had been Ninon de L'Enclos' lovers. She knew everything about love. For her, seduction was a game that needed to be applied with skill. As she aged, Ninon's reputation grew. The wealthiest families in France sent their sons to her to learn the art of love. There is a difference between men and women, but Ninon knew that when it comes to seduction, both are equal. People like to be seduced, but seduction depends on subtlety. You shouldn't reveal your intentions openly. You need to give mixed signals to confuse and excite the other person. Imagine how the Countess felt. After a few moves, she saw that the Marquis was playing a game she liked. She didn't know his next move, which increased her excitement. She enjoyed being confused and jealous because it was far better than feeling secure and bored in a committed relationship. If the Marquis had made the Countess wait, perhaps she would have developed feelings for him. But when he suddenly confessed his love, everything went wrong. He revealed his passion directly, lacking in game and art. He explicitly revealed his intention to seduce her. After that, the Countess's perception of him changed completely. She felt he was just toying with her, and she was ashamed of that thought. Many people are like open books. They speak their minds and reveal their intentions. It's easy to talk about your feelings and plans, but it's hard to conceal your excitement and control yourself. You might think that being completely honest will win people's hearts, but that's not always true. Sometimes your honest words can offend people. Therefore, it's better to use your words carefully and not reveal harsh truths. Being overly honest eliminates the possibility that people will fear or respect you. The world doesn't give much importance to such people, so conceal your true intentions. People naturally believe first impressions and appearances. It's impossible for them to always doubt what they see and hear. Make them believe in your apparent goals while your true intentions are different. This will confuse them, and they won't understand what you're actually doing. Meanwhile, you'll be free to do what you really want. Always say less than necessary. In the court of the Sun King, Louis XIV, his ministers and courtiers frequently engaged in debates. Every day they argued over various issues. Eventually, 2 representatives were chosen to speak on behalf of the opposing factions to the king. The ministers and courtiers also argued about the best time and place to present their topics to the king. What kind of words should they use? What should they do to please the king? And so on. Finally, the representatives were sent to the king. King Louis XIV listened to both of them attentively, but maintained a blank expression. When both representatives finished speaking, the king simply looked at them and said, "I shall see," before leaving the room. The ministers and courtiers never had a clue about what was going on in Louis XIV's mind. He never shared his true thoughts or feelings with them. They only learned of his decisions when they were implemented. Louis XIV's famous phrase was, "I am the state." He spoke very little, but when he did, it was with authority and respect. Whenever a petition was presented to him, he always responded with, "I shall see." Louis XIV was not always mysterious and secretive. In his youth, he was quite talkative and expressive. However, when he became king, he began to hide his feelings and thoughts behind a mask. No one could flatter Louis XIV to gain his favor because no one knew what pleased him. The king remained silent, while those around him often revealed their intentions by constantly talking. Louis XIV used this information to his advantage. His silence kept the situation under his control. Human nature compels us to explain and interpret everything. If you remain silent or speak thoughtfully, people will interpret your silence in their own way and reveal more about themselves and their weaknesses. If you speak less, people will keep pondering over your mysterious comments. Short responses make you appear more intelligent and philosophical. However, avoid saying anything foolish or dangerous. Once spoken, words cannot be taken back. It is better to remain silent than to make a sarcastic remark. For example, the famous visual artist Andy Warhol once said, "My silence adds more power to me." He gave journalists such mysterious and confusing answers that no one could understand them. They would keep scratching their heads, but could not fathom the depth of his words. However, Andy's comments often had no particular meaning. He rarely talked about his artwork. Andy let others derive their own interpretations. He had learned that the less he spoke, the more his artwork was discussed, and the more value it received. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. In 1841, P.T. Barnum was trying to establish his reputation as a great showman. He wanted to purchase the American Museum in New York and turn it into his entertainment center. The problem was that he didn't have the $15,000 needed to buy it from its owners. Instead, Barnum convinced them to sell the museum with a verbal agreement promising some guarantees. However, at the last minute, the museum owners decided not to sell to him. They preferred to sell it to the owners of Peale's Museum, citing Peale's established reputation, whereas no one knew Barnum. This upset Barnum greatly. The museum owners explained that Peale had a reputation while Barnum was a newcomer in the entertainment business. So Barnum devised a plan to ruin Peale's reputation. He wrote letters to all the newspaper companies, complaining that Peale did not know how to entertain people. Barnum warned everyone not to buy Peale's company stocks because buying the American Museum had caused Peale significant financial loss. Barnum's campaign worked. Peale's stock prices suddenly plummeted. The American Museum reconsidered their decision and signed the deal with Barnum instead. Years later, when Peale recovered from this, they sought revenge. Peale's museum launched highbrow entertainment with more scientific attractions like hypnotism, which was vastly different from Barnum's vulgar shows featuring animals, acrobats, and freak shows. Most of the public liked highbrow entertainment and flocked to Peale's museum in large numbers. Despite Barnum's repeated efforts to ruin Peale's reputation, he struggled. At one performance, Barnum hypnotized a little girl, putting her in a trance, trying to show that she would never wake up. He then attempted to hypnotize some audience members, but they didn't fall for it. The audience laughed at him. Barnum's frustration was evident. He claimed he could prove the girl was under his spell by cutting her finger. As he started to sharpen his knife, the girl suddenly woke up and ran away. The audience erupted in laughter. Barnum continued his hypnotism parody for several weeks. As a result, people soon grew tired of Peale's hypnotism act, and attendance at Peale's museum declined. Meanwhile, Barnum's reputation for showmanship and boldness steadily increased, while Peale's reputation suffered a significant blow. Initially, Barnum created doubt in people's minds about Peale's reputation. He spread rumors about Peale's skills and financial situation. It's challenging to combat rumors. You can deny them, but defending yourself often makes people believe the rumors are true. If you don't react, people will talk even more, and the rumors will spread further. This is why spreading rumors can easily destroy an enemy's reputation, especially if you don't have a solid reputation like Barnum. Another tactic Barnum used was the hypnotism parody. He mocked Peale's reputation. In retaliation, Peale tried to defend himself, drawing all attention to Barnum. Insulting your enemy can be risky and may not harm them, but mocking them shows that you are secure in your reputation, laughing at their shortcomings. Therefore, you should build a good reputation through an outstanding quality that sets you apart from your competitors. This quality will make people talk about you. Give the world a chance to see your reputation. It will spread like wildfire and boost your power and personality with little effort. People will respect you based on your reputation. This way, you can achieve your goals without speaking or being present. Your outstanding quality will be enough to cast your spell over people. Remember, do not insult your enemy. Taunting or mocking is a better way to damage their reputation. If your reputation is tarnished, align yourself with someone who has a significant name in society. For example, Barnum hired Jenny Lind, a high-class singer from Europe, to change people's perception of his entertainment as vulgar. Court attention at all cost. In 1905, rumors were swirling around Paris about a young Asian dancer who gradually stripped off her clothes during private performances. This woman was known as Mata Hari. She invited only a select few to her home, which was filled with Indian statues and antique Asian handicrafts. A group of musicians played Hindi and Javanese songs. The chosen guests were made to wait, building anticipation, before Mata Hari appeared before them with her beautiful face and alluring body. She wore minimal clothing with a diamond-studded bra and a transparent sarong that revealed almost everything. Her face, hair, and arms were adorned with jewelry. Mata Hari's provocative dance was unlike anything seen before in France. She claimed her dance was inspired by Indian mythology and Javanese folklore. The rich and powerful of Europe vied for an invitation to Mata Hari's performances because of the rumor that she sometimes danced completely nude. People were desperate to know more about her. Mata Hari once told reporters that she was born in the Netherlands but raised in Indonesia. She also claimed to have traveled to India, where she learned ancient classical dances. However, Mata Hari told a different story in each interview. To one reporter, she said she was raised in India and was well versed in Indian culture. To another, she claimed her grandmother was the daughter of a Javanese princess. She also said she lived in Sumatra, where she learned horse riding and shooting. No one knew where Mata Hari came from or who she really was, but reporters found each news story fascinating and praised her, even comparing her to an Indian deity. In August 1905, Mata Hari was set to perform a dance in front of a large audience. However, on the opening night, chaos erupted as people scrambled to catch a glimpse of her. She had become a cult figure, with women wanting to look like her. Mata Hari became famous not only in Paris, but all over Europe. She was invited to perform in Berlin, Milan, and Vienna. She toured Europe, mingled with the elite, and quickly became wealthy. However, after World War I, Mata Hari was accused of being a German spy, and France arrested her. During her trial, it was revealed that she was neither Indian nor Indonesian. Although she had lived in Asia, She did not have Asian blood. In fact, Mata Hari's real name was Margaretha Zelle, and she hailed from a province in the Netherlands. When Zelle arrived in Paris in 1904, she was penniless. She was like the many other girls who came to Paris to become artists, models, theater actresses, and nightclub dancers. After a few years of entertaining, as younger girls took their place, these older women often turned to prostitution. Those who did not become prostitutes often returned home poor and destitute. But Margaretha Zelle was not like other girls. She was ambitious, although she had little experience as a dancer or actress. She had traveled to Indonesia with her family as a child and was familiar with the local dances. Margaretha realized that her face, body, or dance were not as important. The most powerful thing was to create a mystery around herself. Everything Mata Hari did had an element of mystery. Her dance, costumes, and the stories she told were shrouded in secrecy. She constantly changed them and presented herself in different ways each time. This mystery drove people wild, making them desperate to learn more about her. It wasn't that Mata Hari was more beautiful or danced better than other girls in Paris. What set her apart was her mysterious personality, which made her rich, famous, and beloved. Our ancestors lived in a world full of mysteries. There were many things they did not understand, such as natural disasters, diseases, and death. This is why they created myths and legends to explain these phenomena. However, with the advent of science, humans started getting precise information about everything, but mysteries and unsolved puzzles still captivate us. To create a sense of mystery, you don't have to work too hard. Remember that most people are like open books, but by being unpredictable and inconsistent without saying much, you can become a mysterious figure. Speak in riddles and behave in strange ways. By being mysterious, you can appear more attractive and intelligent to the world. You become superior to those who want to know your true personality or goals. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. In 1883, there was a young scientist in Serbia named Nikola Tesla. Tesla worked for the Continental Edison Company in Europe. He was a brilliant inventor. The plant manager, Charles Batchelor, convinced him to go to New York and gave him a reference letter for Thomas Edison. When Tesla arrived, Edison immediately hired him. Tesla worked 18 hours a day to improve Edison's dynamos. He proposed a complete redesign of the dynamos. Edison, thinking it would take Tesla years to complete the project, promised him $50,000 upon its completion. Tesla worked day and night and perfected the dynamo within a year. His design even included automatic controls. He went to Edison and asked for the $50,000. Though impressed by the new dynamo, which promised significant profits, Edison told Tesla that the promise of $50,000 was a joke. He gave Tesla a small sum instead. Tesla's ultimate goal was to develop an alternating current AC system for electricity, but Edison refused to support his research as he believed in direct current DC systems. Later, Edison even tried to sabotage Tesla's success with the AC system. Tesla presented his idea to a wealthy businessman named George Westinghouse, who had started his own electric company. Westinghouse provided Tesla with everything he needed for research and offered him a substantial amount for the future profits of AC. Today, we still use Tesla's AC system, although he filed patents for it. Some scientists claim that Tesla merely worked on their old ideas, and thus Tesla did not receive full credit for his work. People credited Westinghouse with inventing the AC system. A year later, another businessman, J.P. Morgan, bought Westinghouse's company. Morgan asked Westinghouse to cancel Tesla's royalty contract as part of the deal. Westinghouse convinced Tesla to accept $216,000 for his patents. This was a tiny amount compared to the $12 million that Tesla's full royalty would have been worth at the time. Consequently, Tesla lost control over his patents, money, and great inventions to his financiers. Another issue involved Guglielmo Marconi, who invented the radio in 1899. The truth was that Marconi used Tesla's patents filed in 1897, and all his work depended on Tesla's research. Tesla invented the induction motor and AC power system and was the true inventor of the radio. However, he never received credit for these great discoveries. Tesla lived in poverty until his death. His mistake was believing that science had nothing to do with politics. Tesla never valued money or fame, which led to his career's downfall. He never took credit for his inventions or royalties, making it difficult for him to find investors for his research. Many scientists stole Tesla's patents and took credit for his work. Tesla preferred working alone, but this habit forced him to live a life of poverty and helplessness. On the other hand, Thomas Edison was the complete opposite. He was not a great inventor or scientist, but a talented businessman and publicist. Edison often stole others' work and was willing to do anything for wealth, fame, and credit. Most people knew Edison better than Tesla and believed he was behind most great inventions. Remember, taking credit for inventions is more important than the inventions themselves. You must receive recognition for your hard work. Never let others steal your ideas and projects. Always ensure that no one uses your work for their benefit. Life is short and time is precious. Doing everything yourself will waste both your time and energy. It is better to hire people who are more creative and skilled than you, or consult experts for ideas. Take Shakespeare as an example. He was greatly influenced by the works of Greek philosopher Plutarch. Shakespeare was inspired by his plots, characters, and dialogues. You can study the work of experts in the field you want to work in and create your projects based on their ideas. This way, you won't need to learn through trial and error. You can learn and understand everything without making mistakes by reading and comprehending the experiences of those who came before you. Make other people come to you. Use bait, if necessary. In 1814, at the Congress of Vienna, all European countries gathered to discuss the collapsing empire of Napoleon Bonaparte. Meanwhile, Napoleon was imprisoned on Elba Island off the coast of Italy. Despite being imprisoned, Napoleon's bravery and creativity instilled fear in people's hearts. The Austrians wanted to kill him on Elba, but they couldn't because it was too risky. Tsar Alexander I of Russia threatened the other leaders, stating that if he wasn't given a part of Poland, he would free Napoleon from jail. Among all the chaos, one leader remained calm and fearless: Charles Maurice de Talleyrand, the French foreign minister. As for Napoleon, the life he led on Elba was nothing compared to his former luxurious lifestyle. He was called the King of Elba, surrounded by his courtiers. He was allowed a personal chef, a fashion designer, and an official piano player. During the winter, strange events began to occur, which seemed like part of a grand conspiracy. Suddenly, British ships surrounded Elba Island, with cannons positioned at every exit. Despite this, on the morning of February 26, 1815, a mysterious ship carrying thousands of people freed Napoleon from captivity and took him across the sea. The British ships chased them, but they managed to escape. This event shocked all the leaders at the Congress of Vienna. You might think that Napoleon would flee Europe and hide in a place where no one could find him. But in reality, He intended to return to France. With a small army, he marched through the streets of Paris, hoping to reclaim his throne. When people saw him, they bowed to his feet. Some soldiers came to arrest him, but seeing Napoleon in person, they couldn't muster the courage to touch him. Once again, they declared Napoleon their king. Many people voluntarily joined his new army. The enthusiasm of the crowd showed how much they loved him, and the king who had replaced him fled the country. Napoleon ruled France for the next 100 days. However, several problems arose simultaneously. The national treasury was empty, and France was bankrupt. Napoleon couldn't find a solution to these problems. Eventually, in June 1815, he faced defeat again at the Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon's enemies had learned their lesson. They imprisoned him on the remote island of St. Helena off the western coast of Africa, where no one could reach him. The true story of these events emerged years later. Before Napoleon escaped from Elba, some people came to his court and told him that he was more popular in France than ever, and people were ready to make him king again. Among those visitors was Austrian General Roller, who told Napoleon that if he escaped, the European leaders would welcome his return to power. General Roller also said that the British ships would allow him to escape. However, Napoleon didn't know that a mastermind was behind these strange events. Former French Foreign Minister Charles Maurice de Talleyrand. He had orchestrated this plot to eliminate Napoleon once and for all. Talleyrand had been against Napoleon for a long time, seeing his ambition as a threat to Europe. He told the other leaders that they should not exile Napoleon to Elba, but to a much farther place, as Napoleon would continue to cause problems from Elba. When the other leaders didn't listen, Talleyrand quietly bided his time and carried out his plan. He convinced the British and Austrian foreign ministers to help Napoleon escape. It was Talleyrand who ordered General Roller to persuade Napoleon to return to Paris, telling him that the people still loved him. Talleyrand knew Napoleon would fall into his trap because of his immense ambition. He also knew that Napoleon would plunge France into war, but wouldn't last long because the national treasury was nearly empty. Thus, Talleyrand tricked Napoleon into returning to Paris, leading to his ultimate downfall and permanent eradication. This pattern has repeated throughout history. An ambitious leader takes bold steps that make them powerful. Soon, they reach the peak of their power, and everyone turns against them. While the leader tries to maintain their power, their enemies conspire against them, and the leader makes one mistake after another until they reach their demise. The reason behind this pattern is that an aggressive leader cannot control everything alone. They never consider the consequences of their actions. They become defensive, trying to counter every move their enemies make. Being aggressive is never an effective strategy. You must stay calm and silent. Let your enemies fall into the trap you've set. Make moves they never anticipated and force them into a defensive position. Learn to manage your emotions, especially your anger. We can take Talleyrand as an example of how he changed his strategy. He realized that arguing with the other leaders was futile, so he sent Napoleon to a desolate place to defeat him completely. Talleyrand knew Napoleon craved fame and recognition, always wanting to hear his name on people's lips. He exploited this weakness and tricked Napoleon into returning to Paris. When Napoleon saw that all his resources were depleted upon arriving in Paris, he lost hope. So, when your enemy tries to confront you, weaken and demoralize them to the point where they surrender before the battle even begins. Lure your enemy into your territory, where they will be weakened because everything will be unfamiliar and new to them. When you are stronger and smarter than them, you will easily defeat them. Win through your actions, never through argument. The year was 1502 in Florence, Italy. A large block of marble stood in a corner of the Santa Maria del Fiore church. This marble had once been a beautiful piece of stone, but a careless sculptor had drilled a hole where the statue's leg should have been. Florence's mayor, Piero Soderini, considered calling Leonardo da Vinci or another expert to fix this block. However, everyone said that nothing could be done with the marble, so the project was abandoned, and the stone lay in a dark room in the church. Later, the great artist Michelangelo received some letters from his friends in Florence. They mentioned the stone and wrote that only he could save it from being wasted. So, Michelangelo came to Florence and went to see the marble. He said that if he started from the part where the hole was, he could turn it into a beautiful statue. Michelangelo envisioned creating a statue of David, the shepherd boy from the biblical story. It took Michelangelo several weeks to sculpt the statue. Mayor Piero Soderini visited the studio to observe the work. Soderini considered himself an art expert. He said the statue was beautiful, but David's nose seemed a bit too long. Michelangelo noticed that the mayor was standing below the statue and couldn't see it from the correct angle. Rather than argue, Michelangelo invited Soderini to climb the scaffolding and inspect the statue up close. Michelangelo himself climbed to the top of David's nose and took out his hammer and a little marble dust. He lightly tapped David's nose, sprinkling a bit of marble dust without actually changing anything. Michelangelo pretended to work on the nose as if he were following Soderini's advice. After a few minutes, the mayor looked at the statue again and said it was now perfect. Michelangelo knew that altering David's nose would ruin the statue. The mayor was a powerful man and considered himself an art expert, so Michelangelo didn't argue. He silently pretended to follow Soderini's suggestion. Michelangelo understood that arguing was pointless, especially since the mayor was his patron. Instead of trying to prove he was right, which could have angered the mayor, he chose to take action. By acting, he could make his point without offending anyone. Arguments only hurt others. In the heat of the moment, you might say something offensive, and the other person will take it personally. Convincing people through arguments wastes your time and energy. However, if you quietly show them the solution, people will agree with you and acknowledge that you were right. So never argue, just act, and let your actions be the proof. Infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. In 1840, Mary Gilbert came to Paris to become a dancer and performer. She took the stage name Lola Montes and told everyone she was a Spanish flamenco dancer. By 1845, Lola struggled to make a career and earn money through dancing. She realized she needed a change and became a courtesan. One man who could save Lola Montez's dancing career was Alexandre Dujarier, the owner of a major French newspaper and a drama critic. Lola decided to seduce him. She started investigating him and found out he loved horse riding. Lola herself was an expert rider. One morning, she mounted her horse and coincidentally ran into Alexandra in a field. From that day, they rode together every day. A few weeks passed, and Lola moved into Alexandra's apartment. Initially, they were very happy together. With Alexandra's help, Lola revived her dying dancing career, and Alexandra announced they would marry in the spring. However, his friends didn't like Lola. She never told Alexandra that she had married an Englishman at 19. But Alexandra was madly in love with Lola, and his life was slowly going off track. His friends began to distance themselves from him, and his business was gradually failing. One night, Alexandra attended a party with the wealthiest young man in Paris. Lola wanted to join him, but Alexandra refused, leading to their first fight. At the party, Alexandra, drunk, insulted a famous drama critic, Jean-Baptiste de Beauvalon, because Jean had said something inappropriate about Lola. The next morning, Jean challenged Alexandra to a duel. Jean was France's best pistol shooter, and though Alexandra tried to apologize, the duel took place and Alexandra was killed. Afterward, Lola left Paris. A year later, Lola was in Munich, Germany. Her new target was King Ludwig of Bavaria. She learned that the best way to get close to King Ludwig was through his assistant, Count Otto von Rechberg, who was fond of beautiful women. One morning, while Count Otto was having breakfast at a restaurant, Lola rode her horse through the street and pretended to fall right at Count Otto's feet. When he rushed to help her, he was captivated by her beauty. He decided on the spot that he would introduce this stunning woman to King Ludwig. Soon after, Lola reached the palace. In a back room, she overheard King Ludwig saying he had no time to hear the pleas of strangers. Lola pushed past the guards and entered the king's chamber. Everyone was shocked to see Lola's revealing attire. She expressed her desire to speak to the king, and he granted her audience. Soon after, she performed a dance at the palace. Though the audience wasn't impressed by her dance, the king had Lola perform several more times. King Ludwig admitted that Lola had cast a spell on him. They began appearing in public together, and the king bought Lola a flat in Munich's higher-class district. He gave her expensive gifts and wrote poems for her. Lola became very wealthy and famous, but also arrogant. One day, while riding her horse through Munich, she encountered an old man walking slowly. Impatient, she whipped him to get him out of her way. On another occasion, she let her dog roam without a leash. The dog attacked a passerby, and instead of helping the man, Lola beat him with her dog's leash. Lola's behavior infuriated the public, but King Ludwig didn't care. He even made Lola a citizen of Bavaria. His courtiers tried to open his eyes to Lola's true nature, but their efforts were in vain. Instead, the king fired those who opposed Lola. Under increasing pressure from the public and his courtiers, King Ludwig reluctantly asked Lola to leave Bavaria in February 1848. When Lola refused and demanded money first, public anger toward the king grew. A few weeks later, the public forced King Ludwig to abdicate. Afterward, Lola moved to England. Her next target was an army officer named George Trafford Heald, 10 years her junior. George was the son of a lawyer with influential connections. Despite being able to marry the richest and most beautiful girl in England, George fell for Lola. They married in 1849, even though Lola was still legally married to an Englishman. Soon after, Lola was charged with illegal marriage because she had married while still having a living husband. Instead of facing the court, Lola and George fled to Spain. However, their married life was never happy. They frequently fought, and during one argument, Lola attacked George with a knife. She eventually kicked George out, and he returned to England, but not to the army or his family. He moved to Portugal, where he lived in poverty and died in a boating accident. In 1853, Lola moved to California and married an American named Pat Hull. This relationship also failed, and Lola left Pat for another man. Pat became an alcoholic and fell into depression. Like George, Pat died young. At 41, Lola gave away all her possessions and became a devout woman. She traveled across America preaching about God and always wearing white. 2 years later, in 1861, she died. Lola Montez's secret wasn't her beautiful face or sexy figure, but the intense emotions she evoked in her lovers. Despite her many problems, People were drawn to her. They wanted to help her, but Lola was a toxic person beyond help. Lola's real problem was her attitude, behavior, and choices, which were so deeply ingrained that her lovers couldn't escape them. Her toxic personality infected them like a disease, destroying their careers, families, and friendships. In King Ludwig's case, Lola's love became a curse for the entire country. If there's someone like Lola in your life, remove them before their love destroys you. Some people are born into difficult situations and can't help it. Others, like Lola, create their own problems and refuse to change their bad habits. Avoid such people because they will influence your mindset and emotions. If you stay around negative people, you will start thinking negatively. But if you surround yourself with positive people, you will attract happiness, wealth, and success. Remove toxic people from your life before it's too late. If you want power, don't waste your time and energy on them. Learn to keep people dependent on you. In 1847, Otto von Bismarck was a deputy in the Prussian parliament. At the time, he was a 32-year-old young man with no friends or allies. Otto realized that he shouldn't align with either the conservatives or the liberals in parliament, but should instead become friends with the king himself. King Frederick William IV was a weak and indecisive ruler. The liberals in parliament could easily force him to agree to their demands. Although Otto despised King Frederick both as a person and as a leader, he followed the king daily and gradually became his loyal supporter. When other deputies criticized King Frederick, Otto was the only one who defended him. Eventually, his efforts paid off. In 1851, Otto was appointed as a minister in King Frederick's cabinet, and from then on, he continually gained the king's trust. Otto began to have a direct influence on the king's decisions. He convinced King Frederick to strengthen the army and distance himself from the liberals, meaning the king did whatever Otto advised. King Frederick felt insecure about his masculinity. Otto challenged him, saying he should stand firmly by his decisions. Otto supported the king until Frederick became the most powerful man in Prussia. In 1861, after King Frederick's death, his brother William became king. King William I disliked Otto and wanted to remove him from the cabinet, but William I had the same problem as his brother. He was surrounded by enemies who wanted to dethrone him. Once again, Otto stepped in to help. He stood by King William, made him stronger, and advised him to be confident in his decisions. Like his brother, King William began to rely on Otto for defeating his enemies and became dependent on him. Soon, he appointed Otto von Bismarck as his prime minister. King William and Otto often argued over many issues because Otto was more conservative. However, King William was so dependent on Otto that he didn't want to lose him. Whenever Otto threatened to resign, King William quickly approved his decisions. This way, Otto was the first to establish state policy in Prussia. A few years later, as prime minister, Otto's decisions united all the German states into one country. Additionally, real power rested with Otto because King William always listened to him. Otto became the imperial chancellor, holding all the control. In 1840s Germany, most young politicians sought to befriend powerful people, but Otto saw that this strategy was futile and ineffective. Powerful people can swallow you whole without a second thought. They're more powerful than you and don't need your help. Compared to them, you are nothing. If you want to become powerful, it's better to ally with a weak king. Help them in every task until they become dependent on you. Share your strength and wisdom with them. Soon, there will come a time when they can't do anything without you. This way, you will have the true power of a king without any enemies. Imagine someone who is ready to fulfill all your wishes, and you can make them do so without hurting or forcing them. The secret is to make them dependent on you. Be the person who gives a weak master everything they need and does it in the best way possible. Soon, they will feel they can neither remove you nor take action against you. Like Otto, you will be the king's servant while holding the actual control. The king or ruler will become so dependent on you that if you threaten to leave, they will be forced to agree to everything you say. Don't make the mistake of thinking that freedom will give you power. Relationships are crucial for gaining power. You need companions, servants, and a weak master. And always remember this: an independent person who needs no one often ends up alone. They are free to go anywhere, but have no power. Therefore, you must have an exceptional skill that makes it difficult for your master to replace you easily. You must be extraordinary or become a jack of all trades, mastering many skills simultaneously. Be the person the master calls upon whenever there is a problem. If the master is dependent on you, it doesn't mean they love you. They might fear you. You can control fear, but love is an unstable emotion. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. This incident dates back to 1926. A neatly dressed man arrived to meet the infamous gangster Al Capone. From his manner of speaking, it was evident that he was European. He introduced himself as Count Victor Lustig. Count Victor Lustig had a business proposal for Al Capone. He said that if Al Capone gave him $50,000, he would invest the money in New York and double it. Although Al Capone was not short of money, he didn't trust strangers easily. He looked closely at Count Victor. His body language and style were quite classy. Al Capone decided to give the man a chance. He handed Count Victor $50,000 and reminded him that he needed to double the money in 2 months. Thus, Count Victor left with the money. He put the money in a safety deposit box and went to New York to take care of other matters. Count Victor never touched the $50,000. He neither invested the money nor tried to double it. 2 months later, he returned to Al Capone and placed the money before him, saying, "I apologize, Mr. Al Capone. I couldn't fulfill my promise. Things didn't go as planned, so here's your $50,000, which I'm returning." Al Capone rose from his chair. He looked at Count Victor and then at the money on the desk. He said, "When I first saw you, I knew you were a con artist. I thought you'd either bring back $100,000 or run away with my money. But you come back with the full amount, returning it honestly." Count Victor bowed his head and apologized once more. He turned to leave when Al Capone exclaimed, "My God, you're an honest man. If you really need money, here's $5,000 from my side." He took out $5,000 from the $50,000 and gave it to Count Victor. Count Victor was astonished. He thanked Al Capone several times and left happily with the money because he genuinely needed the $5,000. Count Victor Lustig was a famous con artist of his time. He could speak multiple languages and lived with a very classy style. He was considered very bold and audacious and could manipulate people with ease. Count Victor could analyze anyone's personality in minutes and understand their weaknesses. Most importantly, he knew that the most effective way to gain people's trust was to present oneself as honest. Selective honesty means presenting yourself as honest or generous to create a good impression on others. Your honesty will prevent them from suspecting your hidden intentions and true nature. Deceiving Al Capone was dangerous because he was a master con artist himself. Al Capone was always surrounded by thieves, crooks, and liars. Their company was exhausting and depressing for him. None of his associates were honest or compassionate. In such an environment, Count Victor appeared, having not stolen a single dollar of his money. Al Capone was disarmed by Count Victor's selective honesty. It was a new and unexpected experience for him. As a result, he was easily distracted and fell for Count Victor's ruse. Al Capone believed that Count Victor was genuinely an honest and poor man, so he gave him the $5,000 he needed. Honesty deceives people, preventing them from understanding your true nature. This tactic is also known as giving before taking. Think about it. Directly taking something from someone is risky because they will likely seek revenge. Asking directly is also not advisable, as even polite requests can often be declined. But if you give before taking, the other person will trust you. Spend some time giving to people so that you create a good first impression. Once they trust you, deceiving them will be easy. They will never suspect that you could harm them because your honesty will keep them under a false impression. Gifts and kindness can win anyone's heart. They weaken our defenses, making it easier to target us. Beware of salespeople, scammers, and strangers who offer free gifts. Under the guise of giving something, they aim to take something from you. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. In 433 BC, before the Peloponnesian War, the island of Corcyra and the state of Corinth were on opposing sides, always at odds with each other. Both parties were desperately trying to win Athens over to their side by sending ambassadors. Whoever Athens sided with would have a significant advantage, and the losing side would face a crushing defeat. The ambassador from Corcyra spoke first. He acknowledged that Corcyra had never helped Athens before and had even allied with Athens' enemies. There was no friendship or gratitude between Corcyra and Athens. However, he had one thing to offer. Corcyra's navy was the second largest and strongest, just behind Athens. If Corcyra and Athens became partners, it would be impossible for Athens' enemy, Sparta, to defeat them. In contrast, the ambassador from Corinth gave an emotional and passionate speech quite different from Corcyra's approach. The Corinthian ambassador recounted all the things Corinth had done for Athens, reminding them of their friendship and loyalty. He argued that if Athens abandoned its close ties with Corinth, it would tarnish its reputation in everyone's eyes. The Corinthian ambassador invoked Hellenic law, saying Athens should repay all the favors Corinth had done for them. He reminded Athens of every favor, insisting they should not be ungrateful. After the speech, the Athenian assembly deliberated. After much debate, they voted and decided to ally with Corcyra and end their relationship with Corinth. Athens was a practical and realistic state with no place for emotions and ideals. The Corinthian ambassador had unwittingly angered Athens by reminding them of the favors Corinth had done, making Athens feel burdened and indebted. Athenians cared little for friendship and favors. They knew that even if other states saw Athens as ungrateful, they wouldn't dare to risk enmity with them. Athens had power and could crush any country that stood against them. A practical person always makes decisions based on the future, not the past. If you want help from a powerful person, first consider their self-interest and demonstrate how you can benefit them. They do not give much importance to love or emotions. Approaching them with love and emotions will make them feel you're wasting their time or that you're desperate. Think of people as different countries with cultures and beliefs different from yours. You can bridge these differences by showing them what you can offer. Study the person and see what they need. Do they desire a good reputation or social status? Do they have an enemy you can help them defeat? Or do they simply want money and power? Find out how to fulfill their self-interest. Ask them what you can do for them. Make yourself so valuable that they will be willing to help you when the need arises. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. Joseph Duveen was the most prominent art dealer in America from 1904 to the 1940s. He had a clientele comprising millionaires across the country. However, one important person refused to buy art pieces from Joseph, and that was the famous businessman Andrew Mellon. Joseph had vowed that Andrew would soon become his client. His friends told him it was impossible because Andrew was a formal and solitary person. Andrew knew Joseph and did not like the overly friendly and talkative art dealer. But Joseph was not one to give up easily. He told his friends that Andrew would buy only from him. He enlisted some of Andrew's staff as his spies. Through them, he learned Andrew's habits, likes, and dislikes. Soon, Joseph knew as much about Andrew as his wife did. In 1921, Andrew went to London and stayed in a luxury suite on the 3rd floor of Claridge's Hotel. Joseph also stayed in the same hotel, booking a suite right below Andrew's on the 2nd floor. Joseph instructed his valet to befriend Andrew's valet. One day, he learned that Andrew was going out and was in the elevator. A few minutes later, Joseph pressed the elevator button and found Andrew inside. Upon seeing him, he said, "How are you, Mr. Mellon? I'm heading to the National Gallery to see some artwork." Joseph had planned everything beforehand, knowing exactly where Andrew was going. Since Andrew was heading to the same place, they went to the museum together. Joseph knew the kind of art Andrew liked. His knowledge and similar taste impressed Andrew greatly. Andrew was surprised, having never thought that Joseph would be so pleasant, that they would have so much in common. After returning to New York, Andrew began visiting Joseph's art gallery. He liked the collection very much. Every art piece was precisely to his taste. From that day forward, Andrew became Joseph's most valued client, spending money freely. Joseph was highly ambitious and left nothing to chance. Besides Andrew, he spied on many millionaire clients. Joseph would secretly pay their staff for valuable information such as the client's schedules, likes, dislikes, and other details. Joseph's competitors thought he had a sixth sense. Many of them lost important clients because of Joseph. Spying has this advantage. It creates the illusion that you know everything and your target can't ignore you. Achieving your goals includes having some control over future events. The problem is that people won't share their plans, thoughts, and feelings with you. Your targets won't reveal their weaknesses, passions, or hidden intentions. Therefore, you must quietly find out everything. You can pay people to spy for you, as Joseph did, but this carries the risk that your spies might turn against you and reveal your secrets. It's better to gather information by posing as a friend. During conversations, remain silent and let people reveal their secrets. Speak as little as possible and let them do the talking. Try to understand the meaning behind their words and ask open-ended questions that require more than yes or no answers. Pretend to share a false secret and observe their reactions to gauge their true intentions. For example, you can see how people react to fabricated information to determine their next move. You can also politely fabricate stories. This won't make the other person suspicious that you're gathering information. Share a false secret about yourself and watch as they reveal their own secrets. Another trick is to contradict the other person's statements. This might make them angry and prompt them to reveal the truth in a fit of rage. Crush your enemy totally. Wu Zhao was a young and beautiful daughter of a duke born in 625 AD. She became part of Emperor Taizong's imperial harem, a dangerous place where all the concubines constantly competed to become the emperor's favorite. Wu Zhao stood out because of her beauty and strong personality, but she never became arrogant. She knew that the emperor could dismiss her at any time. Wu Zhao always planned ahead for her future. She began to seduce Cao Song, the emperor's spoiled son. Wu Zhao found excuses to meet him alone, usually in the imperial bathroom. When Emperor Taizong died, Cao Song became the next emperor. Wu Zhao suffered the fate of a deceased emperor's concubine. Her head was shaved, and she was forced to become a nun, spending her life in a convent. However, she made a plan and escaped from there 7 years later. While in the convent, Wu Zhao secretly contacted the new emperor, Cao Song, and his wife. She forced them to sign a marriage decree, allowing her to return to their palace as part of the imperial harem. Wu Zhao became a close confidant of the empress. Despite sharing the emperor's bed, the empress did not mind because Wu Zhao was a valuable and dear friend. Moreover, the empress had little power, as she had not yet given birth to an heir. In the meantime, Wu Zhao became pregnant and gave birth to a child in 654 AD. One day, the empress visited her. Immediately after the empress left, Wu Zhao strangled her own child to death. Everyone blamed the empress, thinking she had killed the child out of jealousy. Soon, the empress was accused of murder and executed. Wu Zhao became the new empress. Emperor Cao Song handed over the entire responsibility of the state to her, as he preferred a life of luxury, and Wu Zhao became known as Empress Wu. Empress Wu had numerous enemies. She never got a moment's rest. At 41, she feared that her niece might replace her, as she was becoming close to the emperor. Empress Wu poisoned her niece to eliminate the threat. In 675 AD, Empress Wu's eldest son and heir to the throne also died from poisoning. The next heir was the emperor's illegitimate son, who was exiled on false charges. Emperor Cao Song died in 683. Empress Wu convinced everyone that her second son was incapable of ruling, so her younger son was made emperor, acting as a puppet under her control. In the next 5 years, numerous rebellions occurred within the palace, but these rebellions were crushed, and all involved were executed. By 688, Empress Wu had eliminated all her enemies and rebels. In 690, she declared herself a descendant of Buddha and a divine incarnation. Empress Wu ruled because there was no one left from the Tang dynasty. She peacefully ruled for 15 years. In 705, when she was 80 years old, she was forced to abdicate. Empress Wu was unique, powerful, and sharp-minded. During her time, the stories of ambitious women usually began in the emperor's harem and ended in a convent. But Empress Wu was different. She knew she could never show weakness. If she didn't eliminate her enemies, she might have been killed herself. Empress Wu ruled for 40 years, the longest reign in Chinese history. Despite her bloody rise to power, she is still regarded as the most capable and powerful empress in Chinese history. Ancient Chinese history is filled with stories of enemies who, when spared, always sought revenge. Sun Tzu's classic, The Art of War, mentions this. Your enemies will kill you at the first opportunity, so if you show them mercy or let them go as friends, you may suffer later. Your enemies have only one goal, to seek revenge and kill you. They might pretend to be friends, but they are looking for the right moment to destroy you. It's better to eliminate them entirely. Erase their names and presence. When there are no enemies left, only then will you be safe and able to live peacefully. Never sit back completely assured. Winning half the battle is not enough. Never compromise with your enemies. Do not show any leniency. The truth is, you and your enemies can never be friends. They will exploit even the slightest weakness. If you cannot eliminate them, remove them from competition. Weaken them completely, making them powerless. Do not let them rise again. They may talk of friendship, but do not trust them. Always stay alert. Be aware of their every move. Completely crush them. Conclusion. In this summary, we have explored various laws of power. Let's recap them. 1. Never outshine your master. Avoid appearing more competent than those above you. 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Rely on friends cautiously and use enemies to your advantage. 3. Conceal your intentions. Always keep your true goals hidden. 4. Always say less than necessary. The more you talk, the more likely you are to reveal your plans. 5. Guard your reputation with your life. Your reputation is the cornerstone of your power. 6. Constantly seek attention. Attention is crucial to your power. 7. Get others to do your work. Take credit for their efforts. 8. Make others come to you. Use bait if necessary. 9. Win through actions, never through argument. Actions speak louder than words. 10. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. Their negativity can bring you down. 11. Ensure people remain dependent on you. This keeps you in power. 12. Appeal to self-interest. People are more likely to help when it benefits them. 13. Spy on others under the guise of friendship. Knowledge is power. 14. Crush your enemies totally. Leave no room for retaliation. Reflect on these laws and relate them to powerful personalities you admire. Consider which strategies you need to adopt in your life. The original book contains even more laws. Believe in yourself. It is better to be powerful than powerless. Start implementing these 48 laws in your life today and reap the benefits. Thank you for listening to this summary of the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. We hope you found these insights valuable and thought-provoking. Remember, power is not just about control, but about understanding the dynamics of relationships and human behavior. By applying these laws thoughtfully and ethically, you can navigate your way to success and influence. If you enjoyed this summary and found it helpful, please subscribe to our channel for more audiobook summaries and insightful content. Don't forget to like, share, and comment with your thoughts. Stay powerful, stay informed, and until next time, keep striving for greatness. Thank you for your support, and see you in the next summary.